Earlier today, we ended up getting gameplay from streamers who were at Infinity Ward, and we got our first glimpse at both DMZ and Warzone 2. In today's second video, I want to take a look at a handful of major changes from what we saw from Call of Duty Next, from where we were at the reveal of Warzone 2, and where we are a week out from its launch for the entire experience. Additionally, by default, there are going to be a few things we'll discuss here that are different from the current Warzone 1 experience as well, but we're going to be going over some of these glaring changes and some things you may not realize unless you were looking for it. So as we go along, drop your thoughts down below. Do you like what we've seen so far of Warzone 2? Are you looking forward to it? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts below. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on the video. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to stay up to date with all things Warzone 2, DMZ, as well as Modern Warfare 2 with Season 1 upcoming. We're chasing down 600,000 subscribers, and with 70% of viewers not subscribed ahead of that launch, I'd love to have you in the community and keep as many of you up to date as possible. And one final thing, a big thanks to my friend Doug or Modern Warzone. We'll be featuring some of his stream gameplay here in this video, showing off a little bit of what is new. And in the next few days, you may see actually raw gameplay recorded here on the channel. That would be from him as well. So do me a favor, go subscribe to his channel, link in the description below. Great guy, getting back on that YouTube grind, so show him some love, and again, big thanks to him. For now though, let's talk about these changes and what you can expect with the experience of Warzone 2 compared to what you may have seen a few months ago. So first, let's start out simple. The player count is something that changed here back within the COD Next event in September. We ended up seeing the Warzone 2 experience debut at the 100 player count. This now is something that jumps all the way back up to 150 as it was before with the prior iterations of Warzone. Warzone Caldera around like season 2, I want to say, dropped down to like 128 or something like that. So we're going to be jumping back up to that full 150 experience that we've known for quite some time. So that's a positive in my book, if you ask me. Offers more action, offers more kill potential, and offers a lot more to do within each Warzone match. Looting saw some changes here where loot will now pop out of those cash chests. The actual duffel bags and things like that will still need to be looted manually, but this will speed up some of that regular looting that you'll end up seeing around the Warzone map of Al Mazrah, and should hopefully expedite that entire process overall. Now, if you end up killing an enemy, they'll drop their primary weapon or their guns they have on offer, but also that sort of duffel bag, that dropped dead bag, has a new UI associated with it, so it should hopefully make it a little easier to navigate. Again, still kind of going back to where we were with, say, Blackout, but not quite to the lack of intuitive design with that bag in Blackout. It's kind of a hybrid between that, something a little better done, but not quite as easily accessible as just simply all of the loot on the ground right by that player. It does take that extra step to get into it. Loadouts were also changed here, in which these are now obtainable through 3 different methods. Number 1, the primary weapons in the buy stations, which we'll talk about the buy stations in just a second. That is something that you can purchase your singular primary weapon. It's not your secondary, it's not your perks or equipment, things like that, just your main weapon you end up using, basically buying one kitted weapon. Then you also have the ability to get your full loadout from the loadout event in world, which gives you everything, your primaries, secondaries, perks, equipments, all that kind of stuff. And that's something that looks to be available once per match. But the twist here is that it's not designated for each team. Instead, it's a finite number of loadout drops that drop around the world, and anyone can grab them. So that means you may very well go up to a loadout drop that is total bait for an ambush waiting to happen. So just be careful of that going into next week in the launch of Warzone 2, that could be dangerous, high risk reward, whatever you want to call it. Then finally, you can end up getting your loadout from clearing out strongholds and doing the objectives there. That seems to be sort of any number of challenges that could be associated with those strongholds, but if you clear them out, you can end up getting your loadout as a result. Beyond that, buy stations, coming back to that, these changed a little bit here with this. We ended up seeing the mention of being able to buy attachments at the COD Next build, but that's no longer the case. Instead, we now have the buy station sectioned into gear and primary weapons. Gear are your utility items and some things like streaks, which interestingly, it's stated that these are going to be different at each buy station around the map that you go up to, so it could be different depending on where you're at in that match around the world. Primary weapons, though, are your custom weapons you can build out before your match. Like I said, your normal loadout weapons, but just that primary that you can purchase, your upgraded weapon in that regard. The Gulag saw a handful of changes here. It's still 2v2 as we saw from COD Next, but we detailed a little earlier in today's video, but kind of for full transparency and thoroughness, the jailer in this is in the middle, where if you kill the jailer, that can allow all 4 players to return to play, or you can just go for those simple kills, a straight up 2v2 deathmatch. Really comes down to the partial pun, but also kind of literal prisoner's dilemma. If you want to try and communicate via proximity chat with the enemy team of, hey, let's just take out the jailer and all get back into the game, that's something you can do, but it comes down to how trusting you are of enemies, perhaps. But that's something that's a quite literally get out of jail free card if you end up teaming up on that. But if it goes to overtime, and overtime comes and goes, and there are still players up, or maybe all players are still up, everyone loses. So make sure you at least do that before the buzzer is sounded. There's a new feature called Interrogations coming, which there really hasn't been too much detailed on this just yet in regards to the blog post we saw earlier, and then I don't think that we saw any gameplay of this, but it seems to be a form of execution that shakes down enemies to reveal teammate locations from that squad. So giving you a sort of radar ping of where enemies may be, but presumably it'll last a little longer, be a little bit more high risk, high reward once again. AI was changed a little bit. Now it is something that those are no longer around the world in random locations. Those are just going to be in strongholds and other fortified areas like black sites. So that should hopefully make the flow of play a little bit easier to manage. And of course, if you know where a stronghold is, if you call in a UAV, you're not going to be baited as much as if you end up seeing just a regular dot on the minimap that could be a player or an AI just in the middle of a field. Beyond that, we end up seeing some other cool things like end game commendations. This will show while the fly through of the winning team gets in the exfil animation, it'll show what player did what the most and what their sort of role was on the team in that match, which was pretty cool. Again, a more so minor detail, but something that offers up some cool perspective to the gameplay at large. Then we saw some changes with the scoreboard. We now have AQ soldiers killed as a statistic that is tracked. So that means that if you kill AI, it will show up on that leaderboard. Maybe something that's useful for tracking if you ended up going into strongholds or black sites like that. But beyond that, I don't quite know if this was a needed statistic to be tracked, but it is something that is there, and a change no less from Warzone 1 and COD Next build of Warzone 2. And finally, one thing to note that I think might be the same, but also it could be changed, is that zone split mechanic, where the zone will change into 3 zones and then back again as the game progresses. Some games it seemed like there were no splits at all. Some they were at the end of zone 1, end of zone 2. So it seems like they're kind of now on a rotation as opposed to where they may have been static initially, but that's something that, again, I'm gonna have to go back and check since I didn't have hands on, the game's not out just yet. That one is a little bit of an asterisk on that one, so bear that in mind. But beyond that, that's 10 changes you should be aware of here within Warzone 2 from the COD Next build, as well as the overall Warzone 1 experience. So that's something that we picked up from today. Of course, there's going to be a lot more. We're going to break it all down way further once Warzone 2 is actually out. We'll be talking about DMZ here upcoming in the next couple of days as well, but wanted to focus a little more on that Warzone 2 gameplay with this one. So drop your thoughts down below. What do you guys think of these changes here with Warzone 2? Are you guys liking what we've seen so far? Are you looking forward to Warzone 2 and the new map of Al Mazrah? Whatever the case, drop your thoughts down below. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare 2, Warzone 2, and DMZ. Season 1 is upcoming, and we've got a lot on deck, so if you guys want to stay here for all of it, I'd love to have you in the community. For now, thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care, and peace.